All right, so we are recording. So thank you guys so much for taking time out of your busy schedules to come to our workshop on interviewing and salary negotiation. My name is Lauren DePaul Barlow, and I'm a senior career counselor here at Widener. Here we go. So a first impression is made in 7 seconds. So you do want to make sure that before you go on an interview, you are preparing to make that really good first impression. Interviews have a few different goals depending on who you are and what role you're playing in the interview. So if you're an employer, the employer is going to be in that interview trying to confirm or deny statements that you have made on your resume. They are going to try and learn a little bit more about you as a candidate and your goals and motivations in relation to work, and specifically the work that they're doing and the job that you're applying for. They're also going to do what we call a chemistry check. So just seeing kind of like how you are, how you mesh with the team, how you get along with others on the interview to see if it's a good chemistry, if they feel that you'll be a good fit with the team. You as the candidate are also, you also have some goals for the interview. You want to make sure that you're learning about the employer and the specific opportunity. Your goal is obviously to stand out as the best candidate from the other candidates. And you're also checking, you're also doing a little bit of a chemistry check too. You're going to spend an enormous portion of your waking hours working for this company, so you want to make sure that it's a good fit for you as well. Okay, let's use the chat and let me see what you guys think the answer to this question is. So when does the interview start? And just use the chat, type it on in. I'm going to see what we get here. As soon as you apply. Antonia, thank you very much. At your initial contact from the first greeting, you guys are right on target. This is going to be a great group, I can just tell. From the moment you schedule it, so right as soon as you schedule that interview, it is starting. Parts of the interview. So a lot of times people make the mistake of just showing up for an interview and thinking like, I'm going to show up and answer some questions. That's one part of the interview. There are two other parts which involve before the interview, so preparing to make a solid first impression. The second part is going to the interview, making, delivering information about your achievements and strengths. And then the last part of the interview is the follow-up or the close. So by failing to prepare, you are preparing to fail. So preparation is really, really important, as we can see by our little scuba doggy here. So another question, what do you think is a major reason why people blow the interview? Why they do a very bad job in an interview? Unpreparedness, yes. Yes, lack of preparation. You guys got it. Our little Scuba Steve dog helped us learn about that. They don't do their homework. They don't prepare. We're going to spend a little bit of time chatting about how to prepare for an interview. This part of the process is going to take longer than the interview itself. So just buckle up and know that you're going to be spending some time doing this. So you want to make sure that you are researching the organization that you're applying to work for, obviously, the industry that they work in, and the people that are interviewing you, should you have that information ahead of time. You want to anticipate and practice responses to tough questions. You want to nail down some logistics, so knowing where you're going, what you're doing, all that little detail stuff. You want to make sure that you plan an outfit to wear, and then you want to check your digital footprint. So we're going to get into each of those topics now. So just throwing that out there, where are some places online where you can do research to learn a little bit more about either the company that you're applying for or the job specifically that you're applying for? What are some good resources that you guys have heard of? Yes, Lieutenant, company website, Google, yep, fabulous, fabulous. Good, good, good. Any other ideas we got here? Yeah. Company website, awesome. Thank you all so much. It's working here, okay. The company website, we can expand that to also include their social media pages. So a lot of companies are on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. So you want to look at the company's website, yes, but you also might want to check in on their social media accounts just to see what either the company itself is posting or individuals that work for that company are putting out there. This can give you a really solid pulse on their culture and maybe things that you might not be able to read by just looking at their website. So industry websites, business news sites. So these are for, like for example, in higher education. Like I could look at Widener's website, but I could also go to the Chronicle of Higher Education and look up Widener through their resources to see if I can find any additional information about what people outside of the organization are saying about the organization. Employer reviews, we go reviews like on Glassdoor. So you do want to take reviews with a grain of salt because you never know kind of the perspective that the writer has when they're writing a review, but reviews are really helpful to examine, you know, again, trying to get an idea of the company culture and what you could be in for. Looking up if you have the information ahead of time, looking up your interviewers on LinkedIn, this could be helpful as well. You know, you might notice that your interviewer went to the University of Georgia and their mascot is a bulldog and you have a bulldog, and maybe you guys could talk about bulldogs and just make one of those little tiny connections. You could also see if they've recently posted anything or written any articles, and you could bring up that information in the interview. You would obviously want to read their post or article prior to making yourself talk about it. And another place where you can research is your network. So it could be your Widener network, or it could be your personal network. If you know somebody that has worked for a company, they could be really helpful resources to help you learn a little bit more about how to prepare. Okay. Matena, you said social media. I'm just looking at that right now. Thank you. Very good. These are a few additional resource links that we have available through Widener. So on Widener's website, you can go, on my Widener, you can go to the Wolfgang Library. There are online subscriptions to professional associations. So you could read articles that are specific to your area, your industry of interest. On our My Widener, so the Career Design and Development My Widener page, we also have resources that can help you with general interviewing, but also look up information about specific industries. The LinkedIn page on alumni is a good place. The list of alumni on LinkedIn is also a really good place to look for connections. Has anyone been to, first of all, can you guys see LinkedIn right now on the screen? Just give me a thumbs up. Thumbs up, okay, cool, thank you. So on any company's page, you can go to the toolbar along the side and click on alumni. People might also be an option as well, but you can search all of our alumni to see, like if you're looking for a job at, maybe you're looking for a job at Crozier. You can type in Crozier and you can see a list of our alumni that have worked there or currently are working there. And these could be individuals that you could reach out to again, learn a little bit more and help you prepare. Oh yes, okay, good. Just looking at the chat. Okay. We're going to go back, and the last resource that I wanted to tell you guys about is Big Interview, which Big Interview gets its own slide here. So Big Interview is an online resource that you have access to. Everybody has a Big Interview account, and it is found on my Widener. And Big Interview has, it can help you prepare for an interview because you can pick from different interview question banks. So let's say that you're applying to look for a job as a nurse or in marketing or in engineering. They have question banks per industry, and the questions are also then broken down into like kind of easy, medium, and hard questions. So it's a really wonderful resource. You know, us as career counselors, we're kind of like jack of all trade, master of none. But so Big Interview is a great resource that I point students to all of the time to help them learn about very industry specific questions. I'm saying big, like big. Thank you for the question. All right. This is just a really quick slide. When you're preparing to go on an interview, you want to do a logistics check. So you want to make sure that you know where you're going, where you're parking, how much it costs to park, if there is a fee associated with it. If you're traveling, you want to make sure that you are aware of train schedules, you're aware of what traffic looks like at that time. We one time had a counselor who applied for an interview and got an interview here and got the job eventually, but she told us later on that she prepared to come to this interview by driving to Widener at the exact time of her interview so she would know what 95 looked like at that time. And I said, that's really awesome. The last thing in logistics check is to make sure that you know who you're meeting with and how to contact them. Obviously, a lot of the tips in this slide have to do with in-person interviews. A lot of this is removed in the world we're living in today when you just have to log into Zoom. But when we get to the place where we're doing in-person interviews again, it's always good to make sure that you are prepared and you know where you're going. What to wear, this applies in both environments. You always kind of want to err on the side of formal and conservative. Even if you're working for some crazy startup, you know, you're not officially a part of the culture yet. So you don't have the luxury of adopting the attire that the people that work for the company are wearing. So you do want to kind of err on the side of formal and conservative. If you have questions at any time about what to wear in an interview, give them a call and see what's appropriate. No matter what you select to wear, you want to make sure that it is neat, polished, and it fits. And you want to be subtle in any like jewelry or fragrances that you are wearing. These are just a couple of examples of professional dress. This is kind of like very professional, formal. Obviously, we want to avoid the outfits on the right-hand side of the screen. And these are some examples of more business casual attire, so sweaters as opposed to blazers. And again, the accessories on the right-hand side are very subtle. Questions so far? And if you guys have questions, just drop them on into the chat at any time. It gives me a little notification so that I know. All right, chugging along here. What to bring to the interview. So you want to make sure that you have copies of your resume, cover letter, if you had to write one in order to apply, just so that you know, if someone is unprepared, you're able to be like, oh, don't worry, I have my resume for you. Also, too, people might be called into an interview at the last minute and they might not have had the opportunity to look at your resume. So you just want to be prepared for them. Bring some paper and a pen to write down any notes that you might want to take for future reference. This can be helpful if you're being interviewed by a panel of people. Writing down the names of everyone that is interviewing you is a good step, and it can also help you when you begin to think about writing thank you notes. If you're taking notes during the interview, it helps you make the thank you notes a little bit more personal at the end. A pad folio is something that you can bring on your interview as well. This is a good place to keep your paper, your pen, and your resume. And we also recommend, if this is something you're interested in, to consider printing business cards. Sometimes it's easier to just exchange business cards, especially if you know if during the interview there might be a networking piece or a lunchtime event where you can quickly just pass somebody your business card as opposed to your resume. Vistaprint that's what the link is there for, and they have a really nice selection of business cards at a good price. Find your digital self, or I say check your digital self. Google your name, see what comes up. Before I got this interview at Widener, when I Googled my name, my wedding website was the thing that came up. It came up even before my LinkedIn profile. So I had already been married, so I just went down and I just made sure that I removed my information from that site, so that the first thing people would find when they Googled my name is my LinkedIn. 70% of employers have said that they've turned down candidates because they find something negative on LinkedIn. You guys are all adults and professionals. I don't need to go into detail about what is inappropriate, as opposed to like pictures and things to say on social media, but do try and avoid those things. This slide is really here just as a reminder that you want to make sure that before you go on an interview, you're getting noticed for the right reasons. So you are posting, resharing, liking industry-specific information, so that when somebody goes to look at you on LinkedIn, they could look at your activity and they could say like, oh wow, you know, he or she shared a post that we put out there 2 weeks ago, or they could see your thoughts about maybe something that is industry related from a different resource that you found and reshared. This is kind of an example of what not to do. So 4 glasses of wine, feeling good, versus picking up little nuggets of journalism knowledge at Widener University's Instagram. Okay, so remember how I said the preparation piece was the biggest piece, and you do all of this before anyone even asks you one question? We're like 20 slides into this presentation, and now I'm going to start talking to you about answering questions that you're asked on an interview. So the preparation piece is really, really important. So we're going to talk a little bit about first impressions. You want to make sure that when you show up to the interview, that you're greeting the receptionist. So you're being very polite and respectful. You're announcing your name and why you're there and who you are expecting to meet with. Practice a handshake. If we get back to a point in time when we're doing that sort of thing, you want to make sure that your handshake is firm and confident. If we never get to the point where we touch other people again, doing like a bow like this is something that's appropriate. Sometimes people tap feet. I don't know about that, but just kind of like, you know, recognizing the person by smiling, making eye contact, doing a nod or a bow is always a good idea. You want to have good posture and respect spatial distances. So usually staying an arm's length apart, even in regular times, is something that most cultures are comfortable with. Connecting the dots. So in this next part, we're going to talk about how we're making sure that we are looking at what the employer wants and what you can offer, and how you're going to bridge the gap during your interview so that you're spelling out very clearly for them why you're the best candidate. So what will you be asked? Anything on your resume is fair game, so they could point to anything on that document and be like, tell me about this. Other areas of your background that they are going to want to know about are how you handle stress and pressure, why you're interested in that job specifically, what are your goals for yourself moving forward in your career, and what can you do for them? That's probably the biggest question that they are going to want to try and answer for themselves during the interview. They want to know what you're going to do for them, how you're going to make them more money, how you're going to improve something, what are you going to add to the organization. Skills that employers are looking for you to have, some of them are listed here. So this information was taken, surveys through NACE, which is the National Association of Colleges and Employers. So they surveyed a whole bunch of employers, and this is the list that they came up with. I think this list is for 2019. We need to update it. But these core competencies kind of shift every year, like kind of moving spots, but these have been the core competencies for at least the last probably 5 years. But as you can see here, number 1, critical thinking. Then we go to teamwork, professionalism, communication, digital technology, leadership, career management, which again has to do with your current and future goals, and your ability to be globally and multiculturally fluent. So again, these have been pretty similar for the last 5 years, but when employers were asked, you know, what are you looking for in an employee, these are the core competencies that they came up with. Sorry, I just wanted to say one more thing about this slide. If you're sitting there and you're kind of like, well, like, what would I talk about in an interview, or what examples should I give from my past experience to let this employer know that I'm awesome at my job? Thinking about times when you developed or when you demonstrated teamwork, when you demonstrated professionalism, when you demonstrated problem solving, that's a really good place to start when you're thinking about experiences from your past that you want to highlight for an employer. Because again, these are skills that a lot of employers across many different industries have identified as commonalities of skills they're looking for in their interviewees. So question formats. How are we doing? Anybody have questions before I get into talking about more questions? Any questions? If you're there, if you're not sleeping, give me a thumbs up or a clap or something.
I guess like regarding cover letters, like I know I've been applying a lot to like different internships, especially for me, with it being my senior year, and I haven't had an internship, especially since last year due to COVID. I've just like been applying, but I don't necessarily know how to fill out cover letters. I just kind of send my resume in, and that's really been it.
So Solomon, I'm going to reach out to you after this, just because we're focusing mainly on interviewing and salary for this presentation. We do have cover letter workshops coming up later on in the fall. We also have a bunch of resources online through our My Widener. There's a tab just designated to cover letters. There's also video tutorials, workshops similar to this that go through that process. But I'm going to reach out to you later because, yeah, cover letters are important, especially if the application's asking for it. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, oh man, cover letters are really popular with our group here. I wish I had memorized the date of the cover letter clinic, but if you guys go on Handshake, the way that you signed up for this, under workshops or events, you can see when our cover letter clinic is. The clinic is awesome because you show up with literally nothing and you're going to leave the cover letter clinic with a draft of a cover letter. Also, emailing, I guess, hang on, I'm typing this in to everybody. If you ever want to make an appointment to go over anything, just email us at careers@widener.edu, and undergrad, grad, alumni, you all have a career counselor assigned to your population. So that's how you can get an appointment with them. Any more questions? Okay, cool. Yeah. Okay. All right, my friends. Oh, wait, I just got another one. Oh, thank you. You're welcome. So polite. This is good. Okay, here we go. Question formats. So there are kind of 5 different ways that an employer can ask you a question. Yes. Antonia, am I saying that right? Antonia, we will be sending the slides. I have all of the information captured in Handshake, so I can email everybody that's in attendance. I can email you all the slides.
It's Antoina.
Antoina, I'm so sorry.
No worries. Thank you.
You're welcome. Wonderful. Okay. Okay. So employers are going to ask you questions about your background. So like I said, anything on the resume is fair game. They're also going to want to know why you want to work for them. And these are just kind of like general background questions or questions about your employment history. So they could come out like, why do you want to work for our organization? Tell me about yourself. What's your favorite course and why? Other formats that questions will come in are behavioral or situational questions. So employers are asking you questions in these formats to learn about your problem solving and critical thinking skills. So a behavioral question is asking for you to provide an example to the employer of a time when you did something in the past. So it could be, tell me about a time when. Tell me about a time when you worked with a team to accomplish a goal. Tell me about a time when you had to juggle multiple responsibilities at once. So they want an example from your past that shows that you have those skills. A situational question would be kind of like a case study, or they might give you a situation, you know, like for me, it could be you are working as a career counselor and a parent calls you and they're upset because their child couldn't get an internship. How would you handle that situation? So you would talk about how you would handle that very specific situation that they're talking to you about. And you don't have to have an example from the past in order to answer the question. They're going to also ask you questions about your viewpoint, which is a chemistry check. So they might say, what do you think about, you know, if you're going to be a nursing student, you know, what do you think about caring for patients with COVID? That's a terrible question. They probably wouldn't ask you that, but it's something along those lines. Is it better to work independently or as part of a team? So they're asking for your opinion. And again, this is just a chemistry check. There's no right or wrong answer to these questions. Tricky questions. So these are a few. There are probably way more out there. But tell me about yourself. Why should I hire you? What are you most proud of? And tell me about a time when you failed. So just know that these are questions that they might ask you to try and either throw you off your game or to learn a little bit about how you deal with adversity in the workplace. Questions about, tell me about a time when you failed. What are your weaknesses? You do want to plan on having some stories ready to go about times in your work or in your schooling when things didn't go exactly as planned and how you fixed it or how you kind of pivoted in order to still accomplish your goals or learn something new about how you do your job.
Sorry?
Yes.
Hey, I just look up the Nurse Cover Letter Clinic on Handshake, and it's November 18th, just for those of you that want to know.
You're my favorite. So November 18th, it's on, is it at 4:30 or 4 o'clock?
I'm not sure. Okay, it's from 4 to 5:30 p.m. Sorry.
Thank you. Mark your calendars, everybody. That information's also, it's on Handshake, so you can register right now if you wanted.
Yeah.
Very good. Yeah, thank you. All right, difficult questions. The what are you most proud of question is difficult for some of us just because sometimes we don't feel comfortable bragging about ourselves. But you should know that in an interview, it's the perfect time to brag about yourself. It's really like the main time when you should brag about yourself. Same with the why should I hire you question. Another way to view that is them asking you, what are your strengths? And it's always helpful to, again, so once you've done your research, it's much easier to answer these questions. You know, why should I hire you? If you've done your research and you know that they need somebody who is a really good nurse with pediatric patients, you could say that that is the reason why they should hire you, because you have that experience. We're going to get into this elevator pitch thing. So I would bet my bottom dollar that the first question that they are going to ask you is, tell me about yourself. And it might come out just like that. It might come out like, tell me a little bit about you and why you want this job. Be ready to answer that question. This part of the interview, we call it the elevator pitch. So it's like 30 to 60 seconds where you're kind of explaining how your background uniquely positions you to meet their mission and meet their needs. This is something that you can practice because I promise you, you're going to be asked, just tell me something about you. You do want to focus on professional accomplishments in this section, but you can also throw in any personal information that you feel like also aligns with the job you're applying for. A title that a lot of career counselors have is career coach. So sometimes I do like to mention that I'm a big marathon runner and I previously worked as like a running coach, which I apply a lot of the theories that I motivated my athletes to use in running to motivating those to apply for jobs. So that's something I bring up in this phase in the interview. Oopsies. The STAR, give me a thumbs up if you guys have heard of the STAR interviewing method. I got one. Okay, that's good. It's good that we're all here. No, I'm going to tell you, so don't worry. So when we're on an interview, if someone asks us a question, like a behavioral question, and we want to give an example, or even a viewpoint question and we want to give an example, remembering that you're a star and following this formula can help you tell a story about your previous experience in a way that prevents you from rambling, but gives the interviewer enough information to understand the story that you're telling. So star, so S is situation. So this is the who, the where, the when. Task, or T is task. So in that situation, what did you have to do? What was the challenge? What were you trying to accomplish? A is action. So this is what actions did you take or what steps did you take in order to complete that task? And then the results, what happened? Thank you. I kind of got into this. So again, STAR is a really helpful way to approach questions that require an example. It gives you a nice structure to provide a strength-based story, and it keeps you on track because you're very nervous usually in an interview, so it's easy to not give enough information or to ramble and give too much. So STAR helps you stay on track. And I promise it seems like a lot, like that's a lot written on that slide, but it does get easier with practice. I wish I could launch another poll. So we have about 25 more minutes and I really want to get to the salary negotiation. Would you guys want to do this practice and maybe we'll breeze through the salary negotiation, or do you want me to just keep on going through and we'll skip this practice? And the practice is just, I would put you guys in breakout rooms and you would practice answering this question using STAR with your breakout room friend.
Would it be possible to like do the do the other one first and then probably come back to this if possible? Like if there's time.
I'm down with that. Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Yes, salary is the most important for me too as well.
All right. I know, money's great. Okay, here we go. I'm gonna actually breeze through this too. So when you guys get this PowerPoint later on, don't do any of the things on this list. I feel like a lot of this is self-explanatory. This is actually a really important part. At the end of the interview, they're going to ask you, do you have any questions? The wrong response, the only wrong response in this scenario is, no, I'm good. I don't have any questions. You want to make sure that you're preparing questions to ask them. I say prepare anywhere between 3 and 5, and you want them to show that you've done your basic research. You want to ask questions that would allow you to kind of tack on to the end of their answer ways that you could further contribute to the organization. And it's totally okay to have them written down in your Padfolio on your notes so that you don't freeze like a deer in the headlights when you get to this part.
I have a question.
Yes.
For preparing like 5 questions, would it be appropriate if you include salary questions?
Not at this stage.
Okay.
You would want to bring up salary after they've made the offer.
Okay.
When we talk about salary, there are 3 different places where they could ask you, but your goal is always to talk about salary after they've made the offer.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. How should you close an interview? We'll wrap this up. You want to emphasize your interest. You want to make sure that you're asking the interviewer a time frame so you know when you should follow up. And you want to make sure that you're asking for business cards for everybody that you've chatted with, because you definitely want to send a thank you email within 24 hours of the conclusion of your interview. Smile, handshake, nod, whatever we're doing at that time. These are some phone interview tips. I do want to talk about video interviews super quickly because this is like a huge thing that's happening now. Video interviews can happen in 2 ways. 1, you're interviewing with an actual person on the other end that's responding to you, or 2, they're providing you with questions and you're videotape recording yourself answering those questions and then you submit that. In any event, you want to make sure that your background is not distracting. Whatever's going on behind me here is like a terrible example of like, this is a mess back here, and I apologize. But you want to make sure that you have a very blank background. You want to make sure that the video device you're using is totally stable. Don't hold your phone. You're going to make somebody puke. Practice if you can. Practice looking at yourself, looking at the camera, making sure that your device is stable. Be in a quiet environment. Have your notes, resume, cover letter, all that stuff handy so you can quickly reference, but don't like look down the whole time and read off of information because it's very obvious that you're doing that. Have a pen, paper, calendar in case if you are interviewing with a person so you can ask for next steps and you can make a note to know when they should be getting back to you to let you know that you made it to another interview. All right, party time, salary negotiation. Quick poll, and you guys can raise your hand if this applies to you. How many of you have negotiated salary or have attempted to in the past? All right, I got one, or you can type it into the chat here. Salary is so important, very good. Has never, that's cool, yeah, me neither. Has anybody negotiated anything other than salary? So other types of benefits, PTO for equipment, a remote work option, anything like that. Okay, all right. Cool, cool, cool. Okay. So according to Webster's, a negotiation is a conversation with the goal of finding a mutually acceptable solution to a problem or issue between two people who want different things. In that definition, what is the most important word?
Is it like mutual solution?
Mutual, yes. Okay, this could be good too. I guess maybe important isn't the best way to ask this. What is the most, trying to make this a low pressure thing. To me, the most important word in that explanation is a conversation. A negotiation, a salary negotiation, it is just, you're just chatting with somebody who wants different things than you want. This happens all the time. If anyone in here is married or has children, you know, you have a conversation with somebody who wants, you both want two different things and you do have to come to that mutually agreeable situation. Very quick disclaimer, if anybody's in co-op right now, you don't get to negotiate your salary. It's an agreement that's already been made without you. So don't negotiate your co-op salary. That's my disclaimer. So like, why is negotiation so hard? This stresses people out more than anything. It makes everybody extremely nervous. In our culture, it's very uncomfortable to talk about money. For whatever reason, and I don't know the origin of this, but we're taught not to speak about money. Fellowships are negotiable. Thank you. Very good. Hope. You might feel unprepared to ask or to know your worth, so that does make it hard to negotiate. If you are applying for your first job, you are doing a little bit of a balancing act between wanting the experience of a full-time professional role and wanting to ask for more money, so it's a little bit of an act there. And there are usually two things that we're unsure of. So our value and external circumstances that might be impacting the amount of money that the employer is able to offer us. So we're going to get into some of those factors now. So these are some factors that the employer may or may not be working with depending on their situation. It's helpful for you to know these things because the more of these things on this bullet pointed list that you can figure out will give you more information about your salary negotiation. So are they working within a certain budget? Like for example, when I got this job, they were like, here's the salary, take it or leave it. And they weren't trying to hardball me, or they weren't like, oh, maybe if she asks, we can give her a couple thousand more. No, that was it. But there were other things that I could negotiate. So it's helpful to know, if you can, about budgets and the parameters that the employer is working in. Also too, if you're applying for an assistant director role and there's another assistant director role in another department, you're kind of tied to that scale or whatever that other person is making because it's just the way it is in that company. They might be having a difficult job fulfilling this role. It might have a really unique skill set. This could be for most likely jobs that aren't entry level. If it's something that's a little higher than entry level, it might require a very unique skill set. And if they're having a hard time filling this role, they might be more open to negotiations. If the role is time sensitive, and this could be across any level of the company, if the role has been, if it's something that's really pertinent to the way that they work and they need to fill the role like yesterday, then again, this plays in your favor. How long has the job been open for? So again, if it's a really important role, it's been open for 3 months and they're dying every day because the role is going unfilled, that's something that's helpful for you. If the job was posted yesterday and you're one of the first few people that they're looking at, you might not be as valuable in that situation. And the extent to which the job is viewed as growth or developmental. So if the role is viewed by the organization as something that a new role that they would like to implement so that the organization can grow in a certain way, like maybe it's a new sales role for a territory that no one has been in before, that could impact the negotiation. If it's a developmental role, like it's a sales role for an established territory that they feel very strong in, that could impact the negotiation another way. So these are factors that impact you and what you're working with. So obviously your skills and qualifications that you currently have are going to impact your ability to negotiate. The perception of your growth and your ability to do the job. So this goes back to the interview. So how well are you connecting the dots for this employer, highlighting yourself as a really pivotal piece, a really pivotal person that they need to hire in order to help the company grow. Your current compensation. This comes into effect if you are applying for like your second job after college or beyond that. Also too, knowing the law, like it just became illegal in Philadelphia to ask previous salary history, which is fabulous. Your awareness of external market norms, we're going to get into that in just 1 second, but this is essentially your ability to do salary research to identify a range in which a position that you're applying for should be compensated within.
Lauren?
Yes.
I'm sorry to have to go. I have a mandatory meeting for seniors at 12:30. My friend just shoot me an email, so.
That's cool. If you email me if you want the rest of this, if you want to talk through it. Okay, it's also recorded.
Okay, thank you.
See ya. Then the last piece that's affecting you is your ability to negotiate possibilities beyond salary. So again, if salary is a no-go, can you think outside the box to negotiate other parts of the offer? And here's a list of other parts of an offer that might be negotiable, again, depending on the company, and you would do your research to figure out what areas are negotiable. Start date, schedule, remote work, full-time, part-time. These are all areas where you could negotiate. Let's say they can't do anything with the salary, but you would love to remote work in regular life for 2 days a week. That's something that you could ask for in the negotiation. Signing bonuses, if that is something that's common in the industry, are negotiable. Level of responsibility, title, and authority. So if they're offering you an assistant director role, they won't change your salary, but you might want to ask for an associate director role and the ability to possibly supervise, students or other employees. You could ask for them to cover the fees for professional development, trainings, conferences, licenses, and certification renewal. I hold 3 career counseling certifications, and Widener pays for one of them, which was something I negotiated when they told me they wouldn't give me any more money at all ever. So that worked out well, and I was happy with that. Other benefits, PTO, time off, pension, tuition, childcare, transportation. These are all things that are totally on the table to negotiate. Again, depending on your job, if you are a salesperson, maybe you ask for the company to provide you with a cell phone or a computer or even a car or reimbursement for gas. These are all areas that can be negotiated if salary is something that's not on the table. Okay, as a general rule, which we discussed before, you want to avoid disclosing a salary figure, a specific number, basically at all points during the interview process and in the negotiation. You kind of want them to make the first move and put the first figure out there. And again, to the greatest extent possible, you want to avoid talking about money at all, even a tiny, tiny bit, until after the offer has been made. That's when you are going to have the most leverage in this situation. And that's because you're going to have a full picture of the job that you're applying for, and they're going to have a full picture of you and how awesome you're going to be in that job. And again, we want to just focus that we're having a conversation and we're moving towards a mutually agreeable solution. They want you to be happy with your salary. They want you to ask for something because you're going to be working for them for a long time. So they do want you to be happy, but they are working, again, within certain constraints of a budget. So we're trying to find a mutual agreeing point. Salary can come up in 3 different places: in the application, during the interview, and then after the job offer has been made, which is, again, the goal. Should it come up in the application process, employers in Pennsylvania cannot ask for previous salary figures. They can ask for your salary expectations. So should that be asked in an application, you can write some of these answers if you don't want to give a specific figure, like negotiable. If it's an application where they're forcing you to put a number, you can put something like 0 or 1 cent. That will indicate to them that, this is something that you don't want to disclose at that time. If it's forcing you to write a figure, you would want to write a figure that is in the middle of a very well-researched salary range. And again, we're going to talk about some research resources in a second. What if you're asked during the interview? Sometimes if you're speaking with a recruiter or a human resources manager or even the interviewer, they might ask, what do you think you're going to be paid in this job, or what are your salary expectations? Your first move in this case is to answer kind of like the real question, which they're making sure that you guys aren't wasting each other's time. And you could answer that question by saying something like, I'm focused on this opportunity and the total compensation. I'm confident that we'll agree on a fair package when the time is right. So that's kind of like deferring, but it's letting them know that you're really, really interested in the job and you're willing to work with them in regards to salary. If they press again and they're like, oh, okay, yes, but what were you thinking? What kind of salary range were you thinking? You can provide a range, a well-researched range. And you don't want to come across as defensive or argumentative in any way when discussing salary. So you would just kind of provide the range, and you could say something like, does your offer fall within this range? And they'll most likely say yes. And if they say no, well, then you might not want that job anyway because they're not meeting your expectations. But they'll most likely say yes, and the interview will continue. So again, now we've arrived. We're at the ideal situation. So they have made you an offer and they're saying, we're going to pay you $50,000 a year to do this job. When they've made you an offer, you're the final candidate. Avoid the probably overwhelming urge to be like, yes, I'll take the job. And you do want to be enthusiastic. You want to tell them that you're very appreciative of the offer. And you could just say something like, thank you so much for this opportunity. I'm really excited about this. When would you like to have my answer by? Typically, they'll give you 3 to 5 business days to make this decision. Again, that's typically, some industries will be like, you have 24 hours. So again, enthusiastically express your appreciation and ask when they would like to have an answer by. Ask for any kind of benefits information in writing. So you might want to ask to speak to a human resources representative so they can give you a full picture of the entire compensation package, which is salary and benefits. Oh, yes, they're expecting you to ask for something. So even if it's just one thing and it has nothing to do with salary, after all of you have been through this workshop, you're definitely asking for something when you get to the negotiation phase. So the first place to think of sorry, let me back up. So you've said, yes, I'm very excited. When do you want to hear by? They say, okay, 3 days from now, tell us on Friday. Okay, cool. Now what you're going to do is you are going to do some research to figure out if what they're offering you is within your range and what more you could possibly want. So the first place to look is internally. So what things are most important to you? Is it salary? Is it time with your family? Is it the ability to travel? Is it professional development? So you just want to kind of do an internal search, and there's a link here for career values that can help you identify what areas of a compensation package would be of value to you the most. So you start with you, then you move outside to do some market research to see what exists out there for you in regards to salary range. And lastly, this is just a tip. When you negotiate, so when you get to the negotiation part, don't do it on the phone or by voicemail or email. You want this to be an in-person or like via Zoom conversation where the person on the other end can react to what you're saying immediately. That's the goal for this. These links will be active when you all get this presentation, but Glassdoor, Payscale, Salary.com. Payscale.com and Salary.com are my two favorites. I look at both of them and I see what range is present on both of those sites when I'm trying to calculate a range to help a student or a client provide a range for their potential employer. LinkedIn also has salary data. It currently has limited information. Like some industries, it's really, really strong, and others, there's not a lot of information. And ONET is also a wonderful resource for salary. So you would just look up, like on Payscale, it asks the job title, the location, the amount of years that you've worked, your level of education, and you kind of put all that information into the site and it spits out a figure. Those are also some other people are really helpful as well. I know I said at the beginning it's really uncomfortable to talk about money, but if you can kind of, like if you have a close friend or a colleague in the industry that you feel comfortable chatting about this with, that's a really helpful way to kind of like get an idea of the range that you should be asking for. Before you enter the negotiation, and in the next slide, I'm going to encourage you to negotiate 2 to 3 pieces of an offer. For each item that you're going to negotiate, you want to know your bottom line. What are you willing, not willing to accept? You want to know data to back up what you're asking for. You want to know your value, which I would also include that in data. So you want to know what you're bringing to the table and what they're getting by giving you what you're asking for. You want to know your priorities. So if you're asking for 3 things, the thing you want the most goes first, second, third, so on. And you want to make sure that you know your reasoning for each of your asks. So this is the outline for the conversation. And the part number 3, step 3, I'm going to go into more detail on the next slide. But when you're having a salary negotiation conversation, you want to first confirm your interest in the position and then express how many areas of the offer you wish to talk about. So this could be like, oh, thank you, Miss Susie Sue. I'm super excited about this position. There are 2 areas of this offer that I would like to discuss with you. Susie Sue would say, okay, cool. You know, what's your first idea? You would present your request. Susie Sue, you're offering me $50,000. I would like to talk about the salary. Susie Sue would say, yes, what would you like to talk about? You would present data to back up your request. So you would say, I'm hoping to increase my salary by $5,000 for these reasons. The employer is going to respond, no matter what they say, yes, no, or something in between. You express your appreciation. Thank you so much for clarifying. That's good to know. Or thank you so much. The second thing I would like to talk about is my PTO. And then you would just kind of repeat the second steps 2 through 4 again. The most difficult part of that outline is step 3, where you're presenting information, either with statistics about salary data or with information about your past, explaining your value and why you're asking for a certain thing. So in that value statement that you're going to explain to the employer, you want to explain your accomplishments, your skills that you're bringing to the table, and the results of your work in relation to the new role that you're applying for. So it could go something like this, using the salary as the thing that we're negotiating. I'd like to discuss the salary for this position. At my previous position, I used my problem solving and program development skills to create a program that not only improved student learning outcomes, but also provided professional development for our staff. I expect to experience similar results in this role. I will be bringing 6 years of previous experience into this role, filling one of your major needs. I'd like to ask for my salary to be increased by $5,000. And they'll say yes. They'll say, let me talk to my manager, or they'll say, no, we can't do that. What was the other thing that you wanted to negotiate? And then you just say, thank you so much, and then you move on. That, we did it. We have like 1 minute. What questions do you guys have? And if you want to unmute and ask, or just type it in,